Hello friends, and welcome to a special Chatty podcast episode where I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things I've been learning recently and some of the things I've been making recently as related to the yarn crafts. I decided for these monthly updates that I want to share sort of 4 different things each time. First, I'm going to share with you what I've been making, right? Finished objects, works in progress still. Second, I want to share things that I am getting ready to make, things that I'm looking forward to starting really soon. Third, I want to share with you something that I've learned in the past month. I'm still a pretty new crocheter, and I don't know what I don't know. I have a video about that too, but I'm still learning more things, and so I'll share with you something new that I've learned. And then fourth, just as a fun aside, I'll be sharing with you something that I've read recently. Often that's been something I've listened to while I've been crocheting. So let's get started. All right, for the things that I have made recently, the first one that I made in the past month was some mini hearts. My mother-in-law asked me to make them for her. My first commission, yay! She wanted to give them to some ladies at church that she ministers to as a Valentine's Day gift, to make them into these little teeny pillows. So I crocheted the hearts for her. It actually went really quickly. It was fun because they were teeny and that was fun to do. And then she sewed them into little pillows and sent them out with a cute card. So I no longer have them. Here's a picture of them so you can see, but I'm really happy with how those turned out. The second thing that I made was Peter's cowl. I have a video about that. I'll link to it up below. But here it is. Again, you can see it's looking a little bit raggedy around the edges. Not like raggedy, but a little bit extra fuzzy, I mean, because the young man's been wearing it every day, all day. He sleeps in it. He loves it. Absolutely loves this cowl. So really, really happy about that one that I made in the past month. The next thing that I had that I showed you last month, I have not made a lot of progress on, but here's the update anyway. This is my country garden sampler blanket. And it has a lot going on. I showed that in my very, very first video where I was talking about having worked on this. I started it way back in the fall. And I didn't pick it up much in the past month. It's just so big and it felt hard. But I have this row of these sort of berries here. It's like a berry stitch. And there's going to be 3 rows total. And I was only about 1.5 rounds around this whole blanket. It's throw sized. It's not massive, but it still felt too hard to do until I had finished all my other works in process and didn't have anything else to work on right then that was like ready and quick when I wanted to sit down and crochet. So I grabbed this and had a lot of fun with it. Surprise, surprise. I finished the second row of berries and now started working on the third. So there's a different color of berries for each line, but you see they sort of are staggered here. And I'm really actually enjoying picking it back up again. So it makes me sad and wonder why I had waited so long to pick it back up, but I'm really glad that I have again, and hopefully we'll make some good progress on this in the next month as well. I'm not going to hold myself to a certain deadline for it though, because I'm sort of deciding how big I want to make it. It's a sampler, right? So I'm putting in new stitches that I'm trying out and learning as I go. The biggest thing though that I spent most of my time on this past month was my Temple shawl, the Klatsiena shawl. And I told you about that in my first video as well. But here it is, all finished and beautiful. I'll have another picture I'll put up for you too, so you can maybe see it a little bit better. Some of this detailing, I just love it. I love how there's sort of a lacy section followed by sort of a straighter section, and then it repeats again, a lacy section followed by a straighter section all the way through. And I just went until I used up the 4 skeins of yarn that I had bought for it. I'm really, really happy with it. It's fingering weight. It's the first time I've worked with fingering weight yarn. So it's just little and kind of fun just for a change to have such a smaller hook and thinner yarn to work with. And I went to church this Sunday for the first time and am really, really pleased. I could not be happier with how this turned out. But it took a long time, relatively speaking, right? It took me maybe 1.5 months, start to finish, which felt long to me when I compare that to projects like a cowl that I did in 2 or 3 days. Or one of my other cowls I think took a week. I've done a bag or a basket or a wall hanging that have each taken between 1 and 2 weeks each. And I realized that I really like those shorter term projects. So even though I super, super love this, I'm not going to be starting another cowl anytime soon. So those are all of the things that I've been working on in the past month. Looking ahead to the future, let me tell you for sure what I'm starting next. This is a pattern called the Oval and Out Scarf. It's from a book that I checked out from the library called One Skein Crochet. Here it is. And this is a picture of the scarf. She looks super cool with her glasses. What I love about this scarf is that it uses super bulky weight yarn, so it could be quick. I've actually made the scarf once already before, but I was trying to hold a thinner weight double, hold 2 strands of it together to sort of simulate the bulkier yarn, and it ended up being too stiff, and I didn't like it. And so I pulled it all apart so I could reclaim that yarn. But I bought yarn on purpose to make this pattern, so I will show that to you. Here it is. These are so beautiful. This is 70% baby alpaca, 30% bamboo, and I'm really excited to be using this for it. It's a chunkier yarn, right, as was requested in the pattern. And here is what it looks like. It's sort of a chainette construction, which I think is interesting, and it's a much bulkier yarn like it's supposed to be. So I may even be starting this today. I'm really looking forward to starting this project, and I know it will go together really quickly because, again, I've made this before. So absolutely cannot wait to have this and to be able to wear it. And the next project that I want to be starting really soon is actually tied together with something that I've learned. So let's skip to that. Something I've learned recently is that you should not store your yarn in cakes. So like I was just showing you these, right, this is the shape of a cake. I have another video that talks about different shapes of yarn and how they're stored. This is a skein, right? This is a cake. And then there's cones and balls and other things that you can store your yarn in. But when you get your yarn, often if it's like a luxury yarn, it'll be stored in a hank, which is just like a long twist, because it needs to be stored loosely so as to not strain the fibers. And what I learned is when you store your yarn in a cake like this, if it's tightly wound, the fibers will be stressed and then they won't be able to bounce back, sort of that elasticity that we really like in our animal fibers. So I caked these up this afternoon because I knew I was getting ready to start. But if you look, I actually wound them with different tightnesses. There's one that looks like it's a lot bigger than the other. They're the exact same weight, the exact same amount of yarn in these, but I wanted to show how one can be wound more tightly and one more loosely. And so I've since learned that storing your yarn cakes, generally, unless they're wound really loosely into the cake, is not good for the yarn. And the problem is that I have some really nice yarn that's already wound kind of tightly into a cake. This is 50% baby alpaca, 50% Peruvian Highland wool, and I love this color. It's a blue, but it's a medium blue that has some richness to it. And this is actually the yarn that I made the oval napped scarf out of. I'm trying to hold double because it's only worsted weight. And it was too tight, it was too stiff of a fabric, and I found it was a little bit too scratchy on my neck, this kind of wool was. Some wools I'm fine with, but this one was a little bit scratchier to me. But I think it's because I was holding it too stiffly in the pattern as well. So I want to make some sort of wearable out of this, but I'm thinking maybe a hat. It's too nice of a fabric, too nice of a yarn for me to want to make it into something that's not a wearable, like a bag or something like that. I don't want it in that. I want it like on my body because it's such a beautiful animal fiber, but maybe not next to my skin. So I thought a hat would be a perfect thing to do with that. I've been looking at lots of different patterns on Ravelry to decide which one to do, and I have not decided yet. But hopefully I'll at least have a start on it by the time I give you an update next month on what I've been working on. All right, and last for today, I wanted to share with you something that I have been reading recently. And the book that I just recently finished is called Upstream by Dan Heath. The subtitle on it, I wanted to read it for you to make sure I get it right, is The Quest to Solve Problems Before They Happen. And this book, sort of like a business consulting book, is how it was billed, which is not normally the kind of book I go for. It was super highly recommended to me by my supervisor at work. And I was like, I don't really like that kind of book typically. The supervisor wasn't saying you have to read it. He was just saying how great it had been. But I decided that I wanted to go ahead and get it. I was going to get it on audiobook. I could crochet while I was listening to it. I'd give it a little try. 15, 20 minutes. If I didn't love it, I'd send it back to the library and say, I tried. But that's not what happened. What happened is that I loved it. It wasn't just about business consulting. The author used all kinds of examples from different fields, from public health and from education, which I'm super passionate about. I'm a teacher. And I found that before I was a third of the way through the book, I was being totally inspired. So I would pause the book as I was listening and crocheting, and I would pick up my phone and I'd send an email putting into practice some of the principles that Dan Heath was teaching. This idea of what are problems that you want to solve in your life, but they feel like really hard. How can you get ahead of them and help try to solve them before they've started, basically? And so I was really excited to get some inspiration from this book that I could apply into my life. So highly recommend Upstream no matter what facet of your life you're interested in solving problems in. All right, and that's what I have for you today, friends. Thanks so much for coming in and joining me for what I've been working on. I would love to hear what you've been making too. If you're a maker, go ahead and tell me down in the comments what projects you've been working on. I would love to hear about them, and I'll talk to you later.